Could you recall a few experiences interacting with the Kurdish people? Because that has sort of become the human interest angle for America, especially in the conflict over there. And over the years, it's also a forgotten conflict, especially because of America's betrayal, if I were to put it that way.
Yeah.
What's the move? What is the impact of America's betrayal on the Kurdish people, and what's the future for them?
Well, with regard to Syrian Kurdistan, I mean, you characterize it as betrayal. Certainly, there was a huge amount of disappointment on the part of the Syrian Kurds when President Trump, actually on two occasions in 2018 and then 2019, announced the withdrawal of US forces. And of course, in 2019, that had unfortunately dire consequences when the Turkish army, as a result, entered the northern part of that area of control, and many thousands of people became refugees, and some lost their lives as a result. Having said all that, the Americans, of course, have not and did not completely withdraw. The Trump White House policy-making process was, I think we can say, fairly somewhat chaotic sometimes. And that decision was taken, but they're never fully implemented, actually. And some officials set about trying not to implement it. And as a result, the Americans still have just under 1,000 soldiers or service personnel inside that area of control. And as a result, directly of that continued American presence, the Syrian Kurds are able still to maintain that enclave. So what's the future? It's clear that the Americans are not going to support full Kurdish autonomy in Syria. In Iraq, where there is already an established autonomous area, as we know from 2017, the West, Europe and America are not going to support the partition of Iraq and the emergence of Kurdish statehood, even though more than 90% of the population in northern Iraq, in Kurdish northern Iraq, voted for independence in an independence referendum in September 2017. They're not going to support it. So my sense is that one way or another, these quite vulnerable autonomous statelets or autonomous entities will, I think, continue. They won't completely disappear. They won't reach full sovereignty. They'll continue to be somewhere in the murky area, between full autonomy / sovereignty and non-existence. They'll be there, but it will be tenuous. They will need to maneuver very carefully. They will need to sometimes balance between the connection to America and, in the Syrian case, the need to also have dialogue on some level with Russia and with, indeed, the regime in Damascus. And this, I think, is going to be the continued picture for them, unfortunately, maybe. But my sense is they have proven to be rather savvy operators, both the Kurdish leadership in Erbil and the Kurdish leadership in Qamishli, in Hasaka, the Syrian Kurdish leadership, Mazlum Abdi and the others. And so I think, I have confidence they will continue to successfully, navigate that situation. But it's a very profoundly complex and difficult one. With regard to just a quick sort of anecdote, let me say that I think, as I already said, I first entered that Kurdish area in early 2013. And having at that time spent quite a bit of time with the Arab insurgents, the rebels, as they were called in Syria, I was immediately struck when I began to have contact with the Kurdish forces, that their level of organization, their level of discipline, the level of even I can say maturity, political maturity in a certain way, was very impressive. I saw it right from the beginning when the first time I went in, it was with a patrol actually of the YPG, who then at that time still had to make these kind of semi-clandestine entrances from Iraq, moving across the countryside, then getting into a dinghy and sailing across the Tigris. And with them, even then, I was struck by their discipline, by their high level of cohesion and organization. So I was not surprised, but I was pleased to see that the United States authorities, a year or so later, when America was looking for a partner for the war against ISIS, identified these guys and said, okay, these are the ones to work with, even if they're connected to an organization which we consider to be a terrorist organization, PKK. Never mind, we need to find a way around that, because these are guys that we can work with, that we think can deliver, and that we think we can develop a relationship with. Well, they did so, and it's worth remembering, we should remember success when we have it. I mean, the Islamic State, so-called, the Caliphate, at one time took in a very large area of land in Iraq and Syria, roughly the size of Great Britain, the British Isles, if I'm not mistaken, of Great Britain, if I'm not mistaken, a large area of land. And by 2019, it had been destroyed. And it was destroyed as a result of that partnership between the United States air power, intelligence, and the Kurdish forces on the ground. So it was a successful use of proxies by the West, and I think it was credit where it's due. And it was clear from the beginning this was a force I think that was that could be effectively partnered with, and I was certainly very happy to see that. I'm happy to see the partnership remain, but as we said at the beginning, there are very serious political limitations to it, which unfortunately perhaps will, I think, probably prevent the Syrian Kurdish autonomy from moving further and further towards greater and greater self-rule.
Please remember to subscribe to us and switch on the notifications for this channel. For our other social media links, more content, and to support our work, please visit citti.net. Dhanyavad. Namaskar.